listening to the Caffeinated Thoughts Podcast. Hi, this is Shane Vander Hart. Welcome back to another episode. Happy Friday. We have a full podcast today, full episode. I have two interviews that I recorded yesterday that I'd like to share with you. The first is with Rebel Snodgrass. He's the Republican candidate running in Iowa House 26. Iowa House 26 is basically the northern tier of Warren County as well as the eastern half of Warren County-ish. The boundaries are a little bit odd, but anyway, that gives you kind of a picture where his House district is located, which is obviously just south of Des Moines. Also had a chance to talk to Governor Kim Reynolds, so she comes on the podcast as well. Before we get to those interviews, first a word from our sponsor.
At American Principles Project, we believe that human dignity should be at the heart of public policy. We work in all 50 states and in Washington, D.C. to promote life, religious freedom, local control over education, authentic economic progress for working Americans, and a return to constitutional principles such as federalism. Want to help American Principles Project? Visit our website today, AmericanPrinciplesProject.org. That's American Principles, PLES, project.org. Sign up for email updates. Help us out. We want to work with you. That's AmericanPrinciplesProject.org.
And I'm back. Without further ado, here is my interview with Rebel Snodgrass, Republican candidate in Iowa House District 26. Rebel, thank you so much for taking time to talk with us at the Caffeinated Thoughts Podcast. It's been a while since we chatted, so congratulations on your primary win way back in January, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Very, very welcome. So I just want to ask you a question. I know last time we talked, I asked you about your motivation for running, but I wanted to ask you this time, can you talk to us about your faith walk and how it impacts your daily life and how it would impact and inform your role as a legislator if you're elected?
Well, I am a Baptist. I go to church at Little Baptist Church here just north of Indianola, between Des Moines and Indianola here. And,
okay. Is that Calvary?
Excuse me, got a frog. Yeah, Calvary Baptist.
Okay.
There you go. I was getting a frog, sorry. And wonderful pastor, Jake and the Jakes, it's John and Amy, and so I would say that my day-to-day walk with God is pretty solid. We have a pretty good relationship. I really am more conversational than I'm several times throughout the day. Mm-hmm. I will actually take and in different situations, it just depends. But I will say the thing that I'm probably the worst at, but I think it's human nature. I know it's certainly rebel nature. I tend to do it on my own. Right. I put my head down. I'm like, I'm going to get this done, and it's like, how many times you need to pound your head against the wall before you go, hey, God, can you help me out here?
Yeah, yeah. Well, prayer should be the first thing we do, but oftentimes it's like kind of our last resort. I know how that is. Yeah, I don't think you're alone there.
So I'm like, I'm at both ends, I mean, I do pray a lot, but then I find myself thinking, this could have been much easier if you would have maybe spent a little time on your knees first. But as far as my faith walk, I do believe in God. I believe that Jesus died for our sins, and that He and only He is the way to the Lord. And so I do believe, of course, in life from from conception to natural death, and so I will defend it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no question how I will vote if a bill gets set on, in front of me on that. That being said, I am completely happy moving forward, period. If it's a small move forward, for instance, the 20 weeks, that wasn't happy. That wasn't, a lot of people wasn't happy with that.
Right.
I thought it was wonderful because it actually opened the dialogue up, and there was people that are pro-choice and that I know that scratched their head and said, "You mean you can do it? You could actually have an abortion at 20 weeks?" Well, yes, and that little child you're following online was born at 22.
Yeah.
So it is a life, and
Right.
so I call it murder. I mean, that's just what it is.
Right.
And so that's where I stand on that.
Okay, so what if elected? What would be your, legislative priorities?
Guys, I've got a lot of concerns, as I think most of us do, as I went door to door and talked with the people. And, I mean, like this morning there was an article, story on the news this morning I was watching at 6:30, and they said that Iowa ranks 49th in the nation for animal cruelty laws. I think that is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I'm a big person for companion animals, and seeing the way they're treated is just heart-wrenching. And so I'm a proponent of Iowans for companion animals. Which is funny because I'm one of the few conservatives probably.
My daughter would be right there with you.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell you, I think maybe my wife has done that to me because honestly, we've been married for like 30 years. And my wife is constantly, when at night she gets on her laptop and she is constantly showing me, pictures of dogs that have been rescued and cats and horses and that's kind of that's something that I think we could do better, and we should do better.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I would like to see it hit the floor. Like
So
I said, I'm pro-life.
So, well, let's drill down on the animal cruelty bill. What would that look like? I mean, what would be, I guess,
Well, there have been, in all earnest, we're talking about companion animals, and the reason I think it catches so much is because hog farmers and cattle farmers and things that are against, I think they're fearful of laws starting to restrict. Well, you have to have this amount of land for X amount,
Gotcha.
or so many square feet per animal, that kind of a thing. But I'm talking about dogs that are like raised in cages 3 deep, 3 high, in Connex boxes that don't get any warmth. They are literally stuck in that pen and left in that pen until they put them down. And the USDA inspects those, and it is out of it's just heart-wrenching to see how some breeders, I want to clarify that, some breeders are not being a very responsible for life. I mean, period. I mean, all life is precious. And you or I, we've got a chance to stand up for ourselves, but, dogs and cats, they can't, and so I think we need to look at that and address the inspections and put more transparency in it, because they are, they try and keep things so that they try and keep them so people don't see what's going on. And so I think some transparency, some state inspections, and I think there needs to be some teeth in the bill that look, if you are caught doing this, then you are going to pay penalties. And I think that it could be a stair-stepped, in graduation. First offense, second offense, third offense, you're done. You can't. You've lost your license. You are no longer allowed to make money breeding animals. in the state of Iowa, and I think that would help a lot.
Okay. All right. So any other legislative
There are
priorities?
examples, Shane. There are examples in other states that have passed that I would look to for advice on how to craft something like that.
Okay. So are there any other burning issues or any legislation that's like, you know what, I'm going to sponsor that, like, my first week I'm in office, I'm filing that bill, other than animal rights? Anything else?
Right to keep and bear arms.
Okay.
We're one of 6 states in the nation that doesn't have that.
Yeah, we've got, actually, I'm trying to think. I think it was the House. I can't remember if it was the House or Senate that passed. Oh, actually, the amendment's already been passed as far as one.
Yeah,
but it needs to pass again in the next General Assembly. So
yeah, it's got to be 2 General Assemblies and then go to vote.
Right. So that's something you're going to jump on, huh?
Yes, I'm all over that. I was down there. I spoke on the floor for it before it passed earlier this year. I'm a very big Second Amendment person. I believe that the Second Amendment protects all others, and I believe that so much negativity that goes towards firearms should literally be pointed at our mental health and our healthcare system.
Okay.
You talk to the county sheriff, and he talks about the jail being full of people that should be being treated instead of being in jail.
Right. Yeah,
And
that's something that I used to work in corrections and juvenile justice, and I saw, when mental health institutions are being closed, it was just shifting these folks from Department of Human Services over to Department of Corrections, that's kind of in the gubernatorial race. This is a kind of a major issue, mental health reform, and there was a bill that passed last session. What have you been hearing from your constituents, and what do you think needs to happen to move forward on addressing this issue more?
On which issue? I'm sorry.
Mental health.
Mental health.
Can you hear? Yeah.
I couldn't hear you very well. I apologize.
No problem.
I really do not have a good solid answer on that Shane. I know that we're definitely in crisis mode here. They've shut down 2 mental facilities in the state, and
right.
I know that we have veterans that are living on the railroad tracks and under overpasses, and it just breaks my heart. I think that when you hear stories like the coach that was shot, and the parents are saying, we tried 5 times to get him put in a mental institution to where he could get help. We knew something like this was going to happen, but yet it happens. And so often in shootings, that's what we hear from those that are around that individual. They realize that there are warning signs, there are alarm bells that go off, and then we fail to do anything or have the tools to do anything about it. And so that's really touchy, because you do not want to get into when he came back from Afghanistan, he had PTSD, and so he can't have firearms.
Right.
You've got to, we've got to be careful, because that is a slippery slope. But I'm very realistic in knowing that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know that there's. I think Florida has a bill. It's gun restraining orders that allows a family member to approach and address this issue before the court, but there's a due process proceeding before somebody temporarily has to have that particular right to carry withheld, at least if they have a carry license, to have it revoked temporarily. But it has, I believe, David French from National Review, he's a person that has written on this considerably, but he said he thought it addresses the mental health issue, but also protects due process, because you're right, you just don't want it just, hey, how do you define mental health? What exactly is going to fall under that? We don't want people that are okay to be denied their Second Amendment rights because
right.
of a particular label. So,
and we have, another issue that I have is the fact that we have people that are moving to Iowa because we have such a generous assistance set, such a generous set of welfare and assistance programs, and so they're far more generous than some of the other states. And so we literally have people moving from like Missouri and Illinois and stuff, and they're moving to Iowa because, well, Illinois is actually paying people, buying them bus tickets and sending them to Iowa, so that they will get them off of the rolls in like Cook County in order to get them here and get them set up. And so we need to define, because there's a lot of hard-working people in this state, and we pay out of our checks. We have money taken out to go to help people because we have big hearts. We want people taken care of. We want to do our part, but it isn't fair to have people coming in from other states tapping into that resource. And what's going to happen, eventually it's going to flip, and you're going to have more people taking money than you have putting in, and that causes a problem.
Okay. Want to just ask you about some potential bills that could come before you. Would you support a personhood bill?
Yes.
Okay. How about Religious Freedom Restoration Act?
Clarify that for me.
Okay. Basically, Religious Freedom Restoration Act. It allows. It gives several steps of action that somebody could take if a complaint is filed against them before. It basically puts extra burden on the state to show that reasonable measures were taken in order to protect religious liberty before the government basically, kind of stomps on it. For instance, I wish I had something in front of me to describe it to you, but basically, it's not a license to discriminate, but it does give a person a process to be able to address if say the Civil Rights Commission, decides, hey, we're going to fine you because you didn't want to perform, or you didn't want to bake a cake for this, or decorate a wedding cake for this same-sex wedding. There's a process that a person could go through to say, to be able to appeal that, and the state has to again show that there's a legitimate necessity on the state's part to intervene. Does that make sense? I'm probably not explaining it very well, but in a nutshell, that's kind of what it is.
I think that I would support that. I would support the strengthening the protection for churches.
Okay. Well, not just churches, but how about individual, Christian business owners? Because there's
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, because Civil Rights Act.
You're talking like making a cake or not?
Well, yeah, I'm talking about any business owner, and I don't want to just talk about just the it's not just about a clash between gay rights and religious liberty, but I mean there are other instances too. Oh gosh, I can't think of any.
I believe in maximum liberty, so.
Okay.
I believe in maximum liberty, so I don't believe I need to even have an excuse. If I don't want to work for you, I'm not working for you.
Okay.
Right. I think that we should be looking at making sure that individuals, period, have that right.
Okay.
I don't like that. Whether you're talking, and like you said, it's not just a clash between homosexuals and Christians. Personally, I have to be honest. I consider myself to be a pretty devout Christian, but I have friends that are homosexual, and I don't have any problems with them. They know where I stand. I believe it's a sin, but I'm a sinner, so I'm not going to judge it.
Okay.
You know, I mean, that's not for me. And so, but I think there again, though, I don't think that the government needs to be getting involved in those kinds of situations.
Okay. What's your view of school choice?
Love it.
Okay.
I think that my wife and I don't have kids, so we've paid in taxes all these years to public schools. I'm okay with that. I mean, that's what we do. We want to educate our youth, and we want a strong future for America. I think that's great. Now, if you have kids and you feel that you can get a better education for those kids, sorry.
Good ringtone.
Then, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying good ringtone.
I think you have. Oh, yeah, right. Sorry about that. I forgot to turn it down. But yeah, if you've got for instance, I've got an employee that has his kids at a Christian school, a Christian academy. I do not think I think he should get tax credits back for that. He shouldn't have to pay taxes to a public school, and then because he's not using it, he's using another school. And so I think the money should follow the child.
Okay. This has been both gubernatorial candidates or in the last two debates have been asked this question, but it actually had to go before the legislature first. Do you support expanding medical cannabis?
Medical, absolutely.
Okay.
Not only that, but they have approved what they've approved for Iowa. They have set the cap at the THC, and I will have to be completely honest. I do not know. I'm drawing a blank at the moment what the cap was set at, but I have talked to I have talked to people on this, and the thing of it is, there is different applications for that. If you have, let's say, like epilepsy, the CBG or I'm sounding like an idiot. There's two proponents or two components of the cannabis oil. One is the THC, tetrahydrocannabinol. I can't remember what the other one is now, but that is the one the other one that they strain out. That is the one that does not give you any euphoric feelings. It doesn't make you high or anything. It doesn't make you hungry, any of that kind of thing. That is very good. They've proven that to be very good at stopping or helping people with seizures.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but when you look at cancer and you look at when you start going down that type of medical condition, it's the THC that helps them.
Yeah.
And the THC has actually been proven scientifically to help retard the cancer. Now, I was talking to somebody when I was door knocking, and he asked me this very question. He gets out his phone and he shows me his 6-year-old daughter's MRI, and there's a tumor in her head that's like a small chicken egg, and it was inoperable. And they said that they literally sent her home from hospice to die. She had lost the ability for speech and needed help being fed, and she couldn't play or anything. Out of desperation, they acquired the cannabis oil with the THC.
Mm-hmm.
In very short time, that child started to speak, started getting the mobility back. Within a few weeks, this kid was running around playing again like a normal kid. When they took her back into the doctor, they done another MRI, and that tumor had went down to the size of a pea, and the doctor said, "I don't know what you're doing, but keep it up." And I have had a couple other instances like this where I have talked with people And I think this is something very serious. We need to get this out in the forefront and address it and move forward.
Cool. Miracle weed. Awesome. I've not heard.
Right? I will say I'm not a recreation guy.
Okay. I've not heard that. Heard that with. Obviously, I think more research needs to be done on that. And wanted to ask you too about a couple things. Tax credits is another big issue with the governor's race, and that's something I know the legislature will have to deal with since they didn't necessarily deal with it with their first round of tax reform. How should Iowa approach tax credits? Should we keep tax credits? How do we put businesses on a level playing field?
That's kind of a catch-22. You have to have local government. You use like the city of Indianola will offer tax deferments and things to get business to come here to bring jobs to town.
Right.
And that always starts a fight, where some people are like, well, we shouldn't be giving them money, and other people are all for it, thinking that with their argument that it's bringing jobs,
Right.
And so I am not really pleased with this whole Microsoft, Google, Apple, Facebook. They come in here. I don't think we needed to give them tax credits at all. They're here because there's not hurricanes here. There's not earthquakes here. We're not really big with tornadoes here. This is a relatively
lately that doesn't seem to be the case.
Right.
With tornadoes,
right?
yeah.
But this is a relatively stable area.
Okay.
And so you add the fact that this is a stable area, and then you look, the cost of ground is cheaper here than in so many other places in the United States, and we have abundant resources. And so, my concern is these guys are going to come in here, they're going to gobble up so much resources that it's going to raise, we're all going to end up paying higher on the electric bill and stuff.
Okay. So
and on the other side of that, they don't create very many jobs. Where we have the highest corporate tax in the United States, and with the highest corporate tax, you're not going to bring manufacturing here, and that's what we need. Manufacturing, those jobs pay well, have benefits, and you get one company that's manufacturing something, and they're going to hire way more employees than where they take literally hundreds of acres and put 12 employees on it.
Yeah, I know they did. I'm not sure we're still number one after the tax reform bill, because there was a cut to the corporate tax rate. It's still high though. It needs to be lower.
It is still high, but I like as you, I don't know for sure where that's at. I haven't had the chance to benefit from that yet.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. True. You had a couple of complaints filed against you with the Iowa Ethics and Campaign Disclosure Board. Just wanted to give you a chance to talk about that and why they dismissed it.
Well, that was actually 42 pages. The complaint was 42 pages, and it was filed, I believe, as a smear, literally as a smear campaign against me. The reporter called and asked me about it, and I told her that it was 100% fiction. And, Megan Tooker was the investigator on that, and she investigated that from the 6th of June until the 20th of September. So there was somebody investigating it. Go ahead.
So just for our listeners' sake, who may not be familiar with this, there was a complaint about signs connected to your business.
Yes. They had they had accused me of colluding with the NRA and the Iowa Firearms Coalition, which was just absurd. They had mentioned that an employee of the NRA was fired for giving me insider information from their political action committee, and it's like it didn't happen. I'm like, the only list I received was from the House majority, and they give me a list and said, these are your best opportunities. If you knock on these doors, these are your most likely voters. That is the only list that I had received. And so
well, I didn't think there was a state law prohibiting that anyway.
There's not. There absolutely isn't. But they wanted to make it sound like I was basically making like they mentioned I was in-kind donations, because I should have reported that as an in-kind donation.
Oh, gotcha.
And,
okay.
But it never happened, so you wouldn't report it.
Right. Yeah, I'm not going to disclose information.
She did determine at the bottom, at the very end of this thing, it went to vote, and it was unanimously in my favor that there was nothing that they had overturned, and they had talked to hundreds of people, and they had not found one shred of evidence of anything wrongdoing that I or my campaign had been doing, which is what I told them they would find. I wasn't really worried about it. It just was frustrating because, there were people asking questions and talking about me and whether I was doing something. He's one of them greedy corporate guys, and it's like, there was that come along with it. But most Iowans are pretty sharp, I mean, they may not they may not be confrontational, but they know, and I believe they'll tell the story at the ballot.
Okay.
When they cast that ballot, we'll know.
All right. So how, this is your second time running for office in this House district. You feeling any different? Does it kind of feel different this time around as far as you're heading towards Election Day that, you probably had a sense of how it was going to go last time perhaps, but what are you hearing on the ground?
We are absolutely phenomenal on the ground. Now, we don't have any scientific polls, but
Sure.
We've knocked on close to 12,000, somewhere around 12,000 doors, and we'll have hit over between 15 and 17 by the end of the campaign. And at the doors, we're hearing really, really high their vote and support. We're getting really high support. So I feel fairly confident that November 7th will be a celebratory day. But, if anything, the last time taught me that does not always happen. I worked really, really hard, and it looked pretty. Everything was looking our direction, And so we just have to see if we got to the right people and we got our message out there, because I have no doubt in my mind, win or lose, I have no doubt, my values align way more perfectly with the population in my district. And the reason I have such confidence in that is because I have talked with thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and I don't care if it's a Republican or a Democrat or an independent. Almost everybody that I've got to talk to has my same values. Now, one might love Trump and want to go eat dinner with him, and the next one might hate Trump and want to run him out, tar and feather him on a rail. But
very few people that are indifferent.
Right? It's true.
Right.
That is true. There's not much in the middle on this thing.
Right.
So I feel pretty confident. I think nationally we've seen the polls, the uptick in the Republican surge as they're getting more involved, and that's really what turns out. It's like is getting them to the polls, because I know that we align really well with the people and what they want here in the county. The question is, can we get them to the poll to vote? Because it is a midterm. There's not a presidential.
Right. Have you pushed early voting at all, or are you relying more on Election Day turnout?
No, we're pushing early voting. If I can win on the numbers on early voting, then I will
pretty
win
good.
hands down.
Yeah.
Because right now I am 452 Republican early ballots behind the Democrat early ballots.
Okay.
So that is right now with that number, statistically, if you look back, that puts me in the driver's seat. But I'm not. We're not even letting up. We're hammering hard. My guys. I've been out. My guys are still out. I come back in to talk with you this afternoon. My guys and I, we're hitting and we're knocking doors and we're encouraging people to get to the polls and do the early voting at the auditor's office, or to fill out, ask for your absentee and do the absentee either way. But we are working very hard at getting our people engaged, and so are the Democrats. And I have to tell you, I run into 5 young Democrats up on the square a couple days ago, and one of them's like, he wanted to take his picture with me, and I'm pretty sure that's probably because of my advertising on TV and stuff, not because he wanted to have his picture taken with his the guy that he's helping to beat me. So, but I told him, I joked with him. I said, "Hey guys, I already heard you talking. I know you're with the opposition." And he's like, "Well, yeah, but I want my picture taken." So I had my picture taken with him and stuff. And one thing about it, it does my heart good to see the young people out there getting involved and standing. Because it's true. If you don't stand for something, then you'll fall for anything, like that country song says. And so it does me good to see them get engaged. I may disagree with them, but I'm an optimist. I believe that every young kid will eventually become a conservative. It isn't any different when you're a kid growing up, and how many times does your dad tell you to shut that door, turn that light out, because he's the one paying the electric bill,
Right.
And then sooner or later you get your own family, and all of a sudden you're going around the house shutting lights off.
Yeah. Well,
I believe that it's a natural law that they will come to.
Okay. Well, hey, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and good luck and God bless.
Thank you so much, Shane. We'll talk to you later.
Right. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Rebel Snodgrass. And now I want to share with you my interview from Thursday with Governor Kim Reynolds.
First of all, I just want to welcome you to Caffeinated Thoughts Podcast. I appreciate you taking the time to answer a few questions for our listeners. First thing I wanted to ask you, Governor, was if you could tell me a little bit about your faith walk and how it impacts and informs your role as governor, as well as your daily life.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm very blessed to have a very strong faith. I was raised that way and raised our children that way. And, I thank God for every day that I have, especially I've been through some really tough times in my life. And I can tell you without hesitation that I wouldn't be standing here today without God's grace and without my belief in Him to get through some really difficult times. I start every day. I start my day with a daily devotion and scripture, and it's an amazing way to start my day because it really helps remind me who I serve and why I serve. And one of the devotionals that I use is Jesus Calling, and it's just unbelievable. It's a God thing. How so many days that devotion is just so in tune to maybe some of the issues that I'm facing or some of the challenges, or just to give me the strength to remember to turn it over, to trust in God, and to I think to let Him lead, and to remember that when I believe in Him with all my heart and not to implement my own will, that He will make the path straight and lead me where I need to go. And so it's a big part of who I am and what I'm doing, and will continue to be.
Love that verse in Proverbs as well. So your opponent likes to your opponent likes to say that your re-election would be the third term for Governor Branstad. In terms of policy, how are you different from your predecessor?
Mm-hmm. Well, I was very fortunate to have Governor Branstad as a mentor, and I think one of the things that I'm grateful for is he really did allow me to be a partner in the administration. He was governor. He made the decisions, but I really had a front row seat, and I could weigh in on what it meant to be governor of this great state. And because of that, I feel like we had a pretty seamless transition for Iowans, and I was prepared to step into that role and to lead. Really proud of what we were able to do this last legislative session. Everything that I talked about in the condition of the state, we were able to get implemented. And I am a collaborator, and I work together with people. I would tell you, and I think legislators would tell you the same thing, that the communication between the House and the Senate and the governor's office has never been better. It really allowed us to work through some very difficult issues, but issues that were really important to Iowans, and whether that was life or tax reform, because we were at different spots, but we kept talking, we kept working on it, and we were able to get that done. So I'm really proud of that. Admitting that mistakes had been made with managed care, I think it was really important that I did that. You can't fix something if you don't recognize that there were problems, and I did. And we've literally spent, with my team and a lot of great people, the last 17 months getting it stabilized to make sure that we have a sustainable system. It's the right thing to do. We're going to continue to make it better, but I've taken significant steps over the last 17 months to get it stabilized and on the right track. So, and I'm just a get her done kind of person.
Okay, so talking about managed care, I wasn't going to ask you about that because it seems like that's been hit a lot during the debates, but since you brought it up, what additional steps do you plan on taking here if you're reelected to continue to make that better?
Yeah. Well, we've done a lot already, but we're going to, just like we did with comprehensive mental health care reform. We took significant steps in 2013 to really make sure all Iowans got the same core services, but we continue to monitor a new program, and we saw that there were still gaps in the system. We identified those, and we addressed those in comprehensive mental health care reform. Same thing we're doing with managed care. And truly, it started with new leadership. I think that was very helpful. I have a child advocate that is now leading the Department of Human Services. He brought in a new director for Medicaid. We got a new actuary. That was critical. And we are putting the necessary funding into it, and it's based on 2 years of actual experience. It includes the comprehensive mental health care reform that we passed last year, so we can start implementing some of those initiatives. And the most important thing, this is what I'm really going to be watching, is I'm not going to travel the state any longer and have people who are providing these services to Iowans not being paid in a timely manner. It's unacceptable. We put financial penalties in the contract negotiations. We have some additional oversight, and I'm going to be watching it carefully. The other thing that I'm really excited about that we'll be working on next year is making sure that we have even a better integrated and coordinated healthcare system that really makes sure that we're providing the right services at the right time, built on real-time data. And we have a lot of the stakeholders that are now agreeing to be better about sharing some of that information so that we can really, really better serve the individual. And I think this is a step that we need to take, where everything is built around data right now. And this is no different. So it's how we're going to really provide the services for Iowans that they deserve, and in a very cost-efficient manner, but really one that's based on outcomes for the individual.
Right. Okay, I want to shift gears here. I want to talk a little bit about education, K-12 education. However, I don't want to talk about school funding, because it seems like from what I've seen, that's been the only thing that's been discussed in this governor's race is funding. ACT just released some bad news yesterday. Nationally, math scores are at a 20-year low. Iowa specifically, only 44% of Iowa students met the math college readiness benchmark that ACT put forth, and that's actually a 1% drop from last year. Coupling that with the NAEP scores kind of being stagnant, as well as the fourth graders seeing a drop in reading with NAEP scores, I was wondering, do you think it's time to revisit our math and our reading and literacy standards?
Yeah, well, you can't fix a problem overnight that we've been, seeing, work on over a 10-year span. So actually, we also, even with the kids that are participating in the high quality scale up programs, we also track them. We need to expand that and get that in front of more kids. But the kids that are participating in it, we did see increased math scores, math, science, and reading. And it was like, I think, 6 and 7% and 4% in reading. We really hadn't even anticipated reading being a component of that. So we can't be afraid, again, to use data. You can't fix what you can't measure. We have a hard time. We run into a lot of resistance with educators a lot of times. And I don't want to test people to death, so that's not the direction I'm going. But we have to be able to use this data to fix the program. And, my God, if they can't do math, that impacts every single thing that they do. I don't care what it is. It is a game changer for our young people. And so we have to continue to look for ways to do this better. I do think, too, a lot of these work-based learning, the project-based learning, the more that we're incorporating that into our educational system, charter schools, just the more that we can apply what they're learning, we're seeing better results from that. And I truly believe that that's what the future of education should and needs to look like, especially for kids that have checked out. We've seen them literally check back in, and we're seeing a difference. So, the teacher leadership and compensation, I still think that was an education reform that we did, 13, 14, I can't remember, I believe was a step in the right direction also. Mm-hmm. It just takes a little bit of time, unfortunately. But we should be looking at other things, too, that will make a difference, because this is just not acceptable, Shane. It is unacceptable that these are the kind of results that we're seeing. It's a disservice that we're doing to our young kids.
Okay, I know Governor Branstad started a review process for standards that started with science, and I don't know where math and reading, land on the review schedule for the Iowa Department of Education, but are those standards going to be revisited anytime soon?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure what the schedule is either, but that should be part of the process, and we should always be reviewing what we're doing to make sure that we're getting the results that we need. So I'm fine with that, and I can check and get back to you. I can't remember right now where we're at on the schedule.
No problem. Also curious, how do you address those who are concerned about, you are very passionate about STEM, and certainly that's the direction a lot of jobs are headed. But I know some people are concerned about possibly an overemphasis on STEM, as well as a shift to workforce development model of education, hurting other areas of education like civics, reading classic literature, the arts. How do you speak? What would you say to those people that are concerned about that?
It's included in the STEM. I mean, we just kept it STEM because people didn't even recognize it. So from a marketing standpoint, that's what they were referring to it as from the national level. So, we wanted to be consistent until we could get more people familiar with it. But I would say A buys me not only arts but agriculture. So we need to be educating the whole child, the whole brain, and it's a big component of even the rubric that we have in place. We have allocated a certain number of the high-quality scale-up programs that we have that really speak to the arts and to the different sectors. And so it's a big component of that. STEM is everything. It is everything. It's a certification. It's a 2-year. It's an apprenticeship. It's a 4-year. So I think sometimes people are so narrow in what they think STEM is, but basically, it's just about helping kids do well in the fundamentals that are really, really important to their future. And so we are doing it. It's a part of the initiative. But if anybody's got any ideas on how we could make it better or enhance it, I am all ears. We're open to that, and we're always trying to look for innovative ways to do things better.
Okay. A friend of mine wanted me to ask you, school choice has been a much greater grassroots appeal than collective bargaining reform. And he said, so when will it be its turn? So when are we going to tackle school choice, Governor?
Yeah. I think they'll come back at it again next year. I believe that we need a strong public school system. I'm a product of that. My daughter's a public school teacher, but I also believe that families should have the right to choose how they want their children educated. And I think the competition is healthy. I think so I know there are a lot of legislators that are still looking at this and looking for a way that we can help implement that. So I know they're working on it all the time.
A school board member who reads Caffeinated Thoughts wanted me to ask you, what steps are you prepared to take to make a home rule that a legislature passed, I believe, a couple of years ago, meaningful?
I'm not sure what you mean by that, I guess.
Oh,
what
okay.
are you trying to ask there?
Well, there was a home rule law that was passed in, I think it was 2016, that gave more authority back to school boards.
Yeah.
And I guess he's not feeling it.
Yeah. Oh, okay, because I was going to say, I thought that, they worked on that for a long time. We were finally able to get that through. Well, I'll have to take a look at it and see maybe if they're able to kind of tamp it down in some ways, but tell him that I'll be willing to take a look at that and see if there's additional barriers or problems that we've had. And he certainly should call the office, and we can set up a meeting with either my education policy person or myself and walk through what some of that may look like.
Okay. Also wanted to ask you, how will you help strengthen Iowa's religious liberty protections? That's something I know a lot of my friends are concerned about, as we've seen nationally. Obviously, the recent Supreme Court ruling is going to help down the road, I think, with that, but it was kind of narrow. So do you have any plans to, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I think, elections matter. So
Right.
take a look at the contrast, and let's take a look at, we don't have to look very far. Look at the Supreme Court, look at Gorsuch, and look at Kavanaugh, and to show you how nervous that makes the other side. I think that's why we've seen just the chaos and the mob rule that we've seen taking place with the Kavanaugh hearings. I'm so grateful to Senator Grassley. He did a phenomenal job. I think he was fair. He made sure that everybody was heard. And that doesn't even distill, you're still hearing some of the other sides want to come back and reopen the hearings. And so I would say to people listening that if you'd like to, continue to see the progress that you're seeing, that elections matter, and they need to get out there and vote. I think it's pretty clear the direction that Fred Hubble would take the state when it comes to, he thinks government is the answer to everything. He wants to raise our taxes. He can't spend your money fast enough. And I think the contrast was pretty clear in the debate.
Would you sign a Religious Freedom Restoration Act if it landed on your desk?
Well, I would take a look at it, but you're not going to be surprised with this. You know where I stand on that. We need to treat everybody with dignity and respect. I think this is something that we need to take a look at, but I just would need to see it. And I worked with some Senate members on some legislation that they have, so it would depend on what it looked like when it landed on my desk, but we'd be willing to take it a look at that.
And last quick question, because I was told you're running out of time. This is Caffeinated Thoughts. So, what's your favorite coffee drink?
Oh, my favorite coffee drink?
Yes, that's the most vital information we need to know.
I love it. Well, I love coffee. I like a very strong roast. If you saw the original campaign thing that the girls put together, they kind of outed me that I love frozen peanut M&Ms, and I love a very dark roast coffee. In fact, they like to refer to it as tar. But I actually kind of love the Starbucks Christmas blend, so that's an easy one. I like that, but I just like a dark roast coffee.
All right, Governor, thank you so much for your time, and God bless you. Have a great day.
Oh, thank you. God bless you too. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
You're very welcome. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that concludes this episode of the Caffeinated Thoughts Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you happen to be listening to this podcast somewhere other than on our website, please be sure to go check out caffeinatedthoughts.com. Again, that's caffeinatedthoughts.com. You could just Google Caffeinated Thoughts and we'll show up at the top of your search screen as well. Also, be sure to check us out on Facebook, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, sign up for our emails. That way you don't miss a single update. You can also listen to this podcast using your favorite podcast app. We're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, we're on SoundCloud, we're on Podbean, we're on Stitcher, Google Play. So, be sure to subscribe if you happen to be listening to us on Apple Podcasts. We would appreciate a 5-star rating, please. Hey, until next time, my friends, have a great weekend and take care, and God bless.